shelter tonight and you aren't there yet, you're still trying to get your information together on what you should go, what you should take rather, to find the shelter closest to you, all you need to do is call the number that we put up on the screen before, and that is the Neighbors for Neighbors South Florida Hurricane Hotline. That number is 550-9944. 550-9944. And when you go, make sure you bring pillows and blankets, and make sure you bring plenty of personal items. We talked about those as well.
They say that these shelters are not hotels. Bring your important papers. You need to take care of yourself. Bring some water. Bring your medications and so forth. What they don't allow, pets. No firearms, no alcohol, and no smoking.
And the reason you want to bring all of that information, the papers and so forth, is because when you get back to your home, it's in a state of disarray. There's some problems there. If you want to be able to find that information very quickly, what better place to have it than to be right there with you at the time, and you know where everything is, including the important numbers you need to call before you make them. And
one need that we're hearing about in our neighbors' phone banks is the need for baby diapers at these shelters. So if you can help us again, 305-597-4404. Many people are leaving, or what we heard is actually they were trying to buy diapers at the stores and the shelves are cleaned out. So obviously if you can help us with that, if you have a child, bring diapers, bring baby food and so forth, maybe their own special blanket, you know, and a backpack of their special toys, because as we saw, some kids there very bored, not a lot to do, and we've got a long ways to go.
Although we did get information from Jim Berry and Neighbors for Neighbors not long ago about some of the stores that were still open. One of the stores was going to be open until 3 o'clock in the morning. One of the
Walgreens,
was it one of the drugstores, and I'm not sure which one it was, but you can call Neighbors for Neighbors, the 305-597-4404 number, and get that information, because they are likely to have the diapers we need.
Eckerd's at Pines and University, we've just been told. Eckerd's at Pines and University open until 3 a.m. And there are also some Walgreens as well. Some Eckerd's open until 11 o'clock, I believe is what we were told.
All right, we got a lot more information that we'll be passing on to you throughout this process of Hurricane George striking South Florida. We'll be with you throughout the evening, and we'll be back after this quick break.
As Hurricane George threatens, critical information for all of South Florida is just one call away. The Neighbors for Neighbors Hurricane Hotline, 550-9944. Just one toll-free number for storm advisories from meteorologist Brian Norcross and News 4 Weather Control. And get evacuation and shelter information in English and Spanish. One number works to keep you safe and informed. The Neighbors for Neighbors Hurricane Hotline.
Welcome back, everyone. Camberell Marshall along with Ann Roberts as we continue to follow the progress of Hurricane George.
In a preview monitor that I have, I just saw Elaine Sergani, who's on South Beach, sort of hanging onto her hat of sorts. Can we guess that the wind and rain intensifying there, Elaine?
Yes, intensifying indeed, Ann. If you could take a look, you can see the waves are starting to pick up as well as the wind. It started raining here about 5-10 minutes ago pretty strongly. And as we have told people, no one is allowed on this pier. And yet, take a look. This is unbelievable. This is ridiculous, in fact, because it is no longer safe. Not only is it no longer safe, but it is no longer allowed. Miami Beach Police Chief Barreto telling us that his police officers will be patrolling the beaches and this pier to ensure that no one is out here because it is no longer safe. We want to go to some video and tell you that there was an incident across the street from the Miami Beach Convention Center in the parking lot as somebody tried to put their boat inside that parking lot for safety. Unfortunately, it didn't work, and that's why everybody was urged to put their boats, tie them down during a hurricane watch. This is what happens when people wait for the last minute. In the meantime, they are continuing to voluntarily evacuate people here on the beach. There are buses waiting for you at 21 locations here in Miami Beach. You can find those locations with the blue hurricane evacuation signs. They were ready to help you, to take you to a shelter. Let's go to the sound.
As long as when the wind gets up to about 45 miles an hour, then they got to cut it off. They take the buses off the street.
So depending on the weather.
Right.
Until it's still safe, you will be available to evacuate people.
Right.
Where do people take their cars when they come here to these sites?
A lot of them come with cabs. They come in cabs and people drop them off. I don't know what they do with their cars, but cabs bring them and their friends bring them, and they just load up the bus and we take them.
Coming out live now from South Point Park to give you an idea of where we are. To our south is Fisher Island. To our north is Miami Beach. The wind's starting to pick up here. A lot of rain coming down now. Once again, this message from the Miami Beach Police Chief: no one is allowed on the beaches at this hour. No one is allowed on this pier. The police will be coming out to patrol the area to ensure that people are starting to go inside their homes. You know, we told you earlier that there were a few places on Ocean Drive that were open. People were there partying. We are not encouraging this. What you need to do is start to go to a safe haven and ride out the storm in safety, not by coming out and taking it as a joke, because as you can see from the weather, this is no joke, a very serious situation. Obviously, we want everybody to be safe. In the meantime, if you have any questions here in Miami Beach, there is a rumor control hotline number. That number is 305-673-7222. I don't know if you saw that, a big bolt of lightning, 673-7222. And here comes the thunder, so the weather getting progressively worse here from Miami Beach. Back to you.
Practice what you preach, rather. Elaine, be safe. Thank you. We'll check back with you.
Yeah, lightning is always a cue.
Yes.
Head for shelter.
Yes.
A lot going on up and down the coast of South Florida. Certainly, as we watch the maps, we can see how much of South Florida is under a hurricane warning tonight. And we have someone from our staff down at the furthest point south you can possibly go.
And we have Jack Hambrick, who is live now in Key West. You're starting to feel some effects. See a raincoat. Is it getting a little more intense there?
And the wind is beginning to pick up a little bit. We're getting some sporadic rain. If you are in the Florida Keys, I must tell you at this point, it's time to bunker down. We're on Duval Street, taking a look down, and you can see that most of the shops and stores are boarded up and closed. However, I can tell you there are still a couple of bars that are still open at this hour. They tell us they're going to remain open all night. There are a lot of people here in the Keys, actually, at Key West, that are going to ride out the storm here. A lot of people are telling me that they think this is going to be a Category 1, a Category 2 storm, and that's really not worth evacuating. If it was going to be a Category 3, then perhaps they would evacuate. That may or may not prove to be a mistake. We won't know until tomorrow, but history can teach us a great lesson when it comes to hurricanes. All you have to do is ask a gentleman who is living in Islamorada.
Because you never know what one of them's going to do.
Bernard Russell is one of the few people still around that lived through the Great Hurricane of 1935.
As savage as any hurricane, but it didn't last so long. It swept away into the Everglades, and
The storm came through on Labor Day. These are actual pictures of the storm as it ripped through Miami. But the loss of life in the Florida Keys was tremendous. In fact, Russell lost 50 relatives as the storm ravaged Islamorada. Only 11 members of his family survived, yet he did not evacuate for Hurricane George.
Morning before then, we had 61 in the Russell family.
storm.
And that next morning we had 11, which meant that 50 was killed that night. There's a couple of families that are living here in trailers, and the first thing they do is come to my house and say, can we ride out the hurricane with you? It's pretty hard to tell, somebody no. I mean, you're on your own, and I couldn't do that.
So you're going to ride it out?
I'm going to ride it out with.
Hard to imagine a man that's been through all of that is going to ride out a storm once again. But the winds here in Key West beginning to pick up a little bit of rain, but we are expecting the storm to get a little bit stronger as the night progresses. We, of course, will remain here and keep you posted on what goes on. We're live in Key West. Jack Hambrick, News 4, South Florida.
Okay, Jack, thanks so much.
All right, we have to go back to Brian Norcross right away now for another tornado warning. Brian?
All right, Cambrell and Ann, we're just coming in here, and I'm let me go ahead and punch it up while I work with it. We're talking about in the Bal Harbor area here of eastern Dade County, obviously. Here, I'm just trying to get the radar oriented. Here's Sunny Isles here in North Miami Beach, and this would be the causeway over to Bal Harbor right in there. So trying to figure out the cell exactly, but the idea is here, Sunny Isles area, Bal Harbor area, North Miami Beach area. This is the cell that we're talking about. They say it was developing near Bal Harbor, so it may very well be. Tell you what, I'm going to look at a little different view of the radar. But you folks in that part of Dade County now need to stay away from the windows and in a protected area. We're actually having a terrific rainstorm out here right now. And let me see here while you're kind of working with me as we try and get to the most recent picture. Well, okay, that's the problem. There's the National Weather Service radar, but it's working behind. Our real-time radar is showing all these very bright reds here. I can't tell you, because it's so close to the radar site, which cell it is. But let's suffice it to say that the areas of Bal Harbour, North Miami Beach, Carroll City, and Opelika, under this very intense cell, part of this line coming in. Now, see, it's very close to our radar site, and that's why very, very difficult to see. But you can see this very intense area of reds and purples there moving off the beach and across North Dade right now. So if you're in that area, stay away from the windows, get to an interior room, just like we tell you in a hurricane. Get an interior room and let this thing go by. It's going to go by very, very quickly, moving at 40 miles an hour. That means it's probably going to take 3 or 4 minutes for the whole thing to go by. So it will be on top of you in a heartbeat, and then it will be gone if you happen to be in the cell. I cannot tell you exactly which cell, because this is so intense up in here. It's kind of masking any individual cell that we were able to see when this was down in South Dade. The last one went through in South Dade. But let's go. Give me a radar picture over there, if you would, Dave Rexroth. Let me show you the extent of this line. Cliff in Sunny Isles, is someone on the phone? Is that Cliff in Sunny Isles? You on the phone? What do you have there now?
It is absolutely probably blowing about 40, maybe 50 mile an hour. Intense rain. We've got some lightning. It's ugly out here right now.
Yeah, that's that squall line coming through, and you need to, but I don't want you to be looking out that window, although I think it's probably past you now.
Yeah, it's already, it just went by us probably about a minute before you got on. I got on the air with you.
Okay, so it's tapering off now?
Yes, it is.
All right, let's go ahead and then take a look here. This is where we stand right now with this squall line moving in. There you see it right there. So you can see where this kink in the squall line is, and then it's coming right in about Sunny Isles, and then it runs all inland. So this is exactly the same line that produced that tornado across Cutler Ridge there. It also extends up here into Broward County. Now, you know, this obviously has a history here of being very strong. So let me go ahead with the real-time radar and get you up in Broward. But we can see that the Broward part of it is not as strong. If you notice there, up here in Broward, the line is not anywhere near as intense. And all of a sudden, in South Broward, it gets very intense here, extending down into Dade. So it looks like this problem cell is moving, according to Cliff there, it moved across the Sunny Isles area, and then went ahead, is moving on off to the west. So again, let me just go over these towns again. North Miami Beach, Carroll City, Opelika. You folks there, stay away from the windows in an interior area of your home. These tornadoes normally are not real strong tornadoes, but the problem is they come on you in just a major hurry, and so you get this big gust of wind, as Cliff described, that all of a sudden it comes up and then it tapers off quickly. So that can break a branch off a tree and slam it into a window and break your window. So that's why we urge everybody to stay away from the glass inside. You'll notice when the wind comes up, and you'll notice when it goes back down, and then when it goes back down, you're going to be okay again. It's just these, this is what we expect. There are hardly even tornadoes, but think of them as very strong bursts of strong wind that can rip something off a tree and slam it against your house. So that's what we've got to be aware of. Obviously, this hurricane, and every hurricane has a different personality, this hurricane is going to produce these. Honestly, it's not the most common thing here in South Florida. This is very common almost everywhere else in the country with a hurricane, but not as common in South Florida. But obviously this hurricane is going to do this here to us here throughout the night. So all right, Cliff, you're still with us. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
We had a question for you. What do you think the possibility of the Gulf Stream knocking this thing a little bit toward us when it reaches the Gulf Stream?
I don't think that's a strong possibility. I'll tell you what here, Dave Rexroth, if you would cue up the satellite picture over there. Again, we're go back to the beginning of that whole sequence, and we'll show you what it's doing, I think. And I'm anxious to get to the National Hurricane Center, and I think we're about 10 minutes away here from being able to do that. Watch the eye. Are you able to see the television, Cliff? I don't know if Cliff is still with us, but watch the eye of this thing as it develops. Now, the question is, where exactly here, thanks, Dave, where exactly here is the eye? If this is the eye here, I think what it's done is it's moved a little bit closer to the coast. Now, because it's a fragmented situation, it's a little hard to tell exactly where the eye is, but I have a suspicion that it's there, and it may have taken a little jog to the left, where before it might have been moving like this. We may be seeing a little lean to the left. Now, if that's the case, that's going to take it much closer to Key West. Now, I hesitate to even go into that because it's not clear at all, and you always want to have more pictures. But here's another view, and if you see, it looks like the storm has suddenly started paralleling the coast, maybe making a little bit of a turn like that. I don't know if you folks at home can see that, but that's what it appears to me. And on the radar, I'll tell you what we need is let me go back to our real-time radar. What I need is the long-range radar out of Key West where we can see the eye. Let's go ahead. That's not the long-range. The long-range radar, the CREF out of Key West. And all right, hang on just 1 second. We'll be able to actually track this eye while Dave Rexroth gets that ready here. All right, here we go. All right, let's take a look now at this long-range radar where we can track the eye and see if what we're seeing on the satellite picture seems reasonable. There's where it is at 7 o'clock. Okay, watch the time up here. Now watch it move here, and it looks like it's paralleling the coast more in the last 3 hours as opposed to moving further away from the coast. And if that is indeed the case, and sometimes you are deceived because the hurricane is sort of redeveloping as we watch it here, sometimes you're a little deceived about this, but if that's the case, that's going to give us more concern for the folks in Key West and take a little bit of heat off of Dade and Broward. But I hasten to add, we've already seen these very strong, intense bands come through here, and we have many more of these to come before we're done. So I don't know that for Dade and Broward it's going to make a heck of a lot of difference, but it's going to make a tremendous amount of difference who in the Keys gets it, if indeed that continues to be the trend, this bending a little bit further left and aiming more toward Key West than toward Marathon, which is sort of what it seemed to be aiming toward just a little while ago. All right, we'll continue to watch it here, but one more look at real-time radar because we have a very, very intense cell right here, but it's right next to the radar, as you can see there. And so things kind of look a little different right next to the radar than they do when they're out a little bit, but you can see how quickly it's moved. Look at that. The beach is almost clear now, and now this cell has moved up here just to the north of Miami Lakes, Carroll City area. That may very well be the cell that we're concerned about right in there. So looks like Carroll City. Look at the purples. Carroll City, here's Miami Lakes, north of the Palmetto, approaching extreme southwest Broward. That strong cell that had the tornado reported with the tornado warning being issued. Looks like just in about 2 or 3 minutes, it's moving so fast that it's going to be gone, and now we await the next band to move on through. All right, that's it. We'll come back in a little bit and give you another little wrap-up here.
All right, thank you very much, Brian. Obviously, this storm is moving quickly and creating a lot of turbulence out ahead of it, and we have a lot more to come before this night is over.
We are getting a lot of calls, by the way, from authorities who are pleading with us. Please do not go outside. Hurricanes are not a spectator sport, if you will. If you're willing to put yourself at risk, they're willing to, they're obligated, rather, to go after you if you are harmed and so forth. So not only are you putting yourself in harm's way, you're also endangering someone else's safety or life.
It's not necessary, and certainly if you we'll provide some pictures from relatively safe positions, and our reporters are out there, but they're putting themselves in a little bit, they're not being as aggressive and being out there and putting themselves in harm's way. Brian, many occasions, has said, look, we don't want to get out there and give people the wrong impression. So we have people out there, but as things get a little bit more anxious and angry as far as the hurricane is concerned, we'll be pulling them back a little bit. We'll show you the pictures, and that's what we're here for. But don't go out in that. It's very dangerous.
Okay. For anyone who needs to read the latest hurricane information, here's a tip for you. You can tune into WPBT Channel 2. That station now doing an open caption simulcast of our News 4 hurricane coverage. Again, that's for anyone who would like to read the latest hurricane information from News 4.
And you can get updates on the radio from the other News 4 Hurricane Network partners. It is extensive. Listen on Magic 102.7 or on 101.5 Light FM. And as we said, Waxy 790 AM is simulcasting our coverage, and WQBA 1140 AM is translating News 4's coverage into Spanish.
Get the batteries in the radio, get it ready to go. Also, the News 4 on-demand website, WFOR.com, has added a link. It will allow you to actually hear an audio simulcast of our hurricane coverage over the web. The address is www.wfor.com, and for as much as we have to do our hurricane homework, many times we're even referring to this guide Cambrell has on the set here. It's very handy. If you didn't get it, perhaps pull it up on your computer as well. And a tip that I might think of, print it out now just in case the power should go out and so forth, and you'll have hard copy of it. It's very informative.
Although it maybe not in color when you see this picture of Brian, which is like several years younger. I mean, it's obviously touched
Hurricanes are poor guy. They're aging. He sleeps about 3 hours a night. So.
We've got a lot more to come here as we have power problems with lights and so forth as well. That's part of what goes on here from time to time, and we'll continue to give you as much coverage as we can on Hurricane George throughout this evening.
The man of steel here, sorry.
And you stay
a big
with
light
us.
just blew and sounded like a gunfire.
We'll be right back after this. Stay with us.
Yep.
Welcome back, everyone. Cambrell Marshall along with Ann Roberts. We can tell you that we got word in from our bureau in Broward that shortly before 10 o'clock, ham radio operators lost contact with the Key West station. Last reported winds were at a constant 60 miles per hour from someone down there. Of course, Brian can give us more information on the reported speeds from the weather reporting stations as well. But we had a report of 60 miles per hour. We're going to be efforting to try to get Jack Hambrick, who is, of course, reporting live from Key West. We'll try to get that up for you in just a few moments.
Also, just about 10 minutes ago, this word from the Broward Emergency Operations Center. They had clocked their first tropical storm force winds recorded at 42 miles per hour. And that is where we find News 4's Ted Scouten safe inside. And obviously, they're bracing in Broward.
Actually, I'm outside right now.
Oh, I'm sorry, you moved.
Yeah, and I can tell you that the wind is starting to move through here. It's kind of sporadic. A little while ago, we had some pretty gusty wind. Right now, it's pretty calm, but the rain has started. Now, something else I need to pass on to one of the shelters here in Broward is already filled. The Hollywood Hills High School shelter is filled now, so people are being asked to go to Miramar High School or Hallandale High School. A couple other things we want to pass on from up here in Broward is still people are calling the 911 number with calls that are not emergencies, not life-threatening calls. Cut it out. The system is getting filled, and folks up here are asking, if you need to call 911 for a life-threatening emergency, then go ahead and do it. But if you need to call because of a complaint about asking questions about something, don't do that. Call the Rumor Control Hotline up here in Broward County, that number 954-831-4000, 954-831-4000. Also up here in Broward County, we understand that, that there is a band that's starting to come in, as Brian was talking about earlier, in North Miami-Dade. There's also one that we saw on the radar coming close to the shore here in Broward County, so folks are going to have to prepare for that. Once again, too, the sheriff here is warning people not to get out onto the road unless they absolutely have to, and if they have to get out there, don't go when we're feeling some very strong winds, because you can be blown off the road, you can injure yourself, or possibly you can injure someone else if you're blown into another car. Something else to pass on, the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport now closed to passenger traffic. We understand a few cargo planes are still going out, maybe a little bit of general aviation. That likely will not stay open too much longer, though, for them, because the folks in the control tower are going to have to leave once the winds get pretty strong there. So some things to keep in mind. Once again, want to pass on about the shelter at Hollywood Hills High School. That is now filled. You're supposed to go to Miramar High School or to Hallandale High School if you need to make it out to a shelter. We're live in Plantation. I'm Ted Scouten, News 4, South Florida.
Okay, Ted, we thank you very much.
All right, we've got Brian Norcross standing by now with another opportunity to talk to the National Hurricane Center. Brian?
Yeah, we're standing by, actually, Cambrell, waiting to get them set up out there. No doubt they're very busy with this 11 o'clock advisory. I'm really hoping that they can make time for us. Sometimes at this time they get really tied up and they call us and say, sorry, we just can't break loose. We are ready to go out to Raylyn, is that what you're telling me? No Hurricane Center yet. All right, but in any case, well, because I want to just see if they're analyzing this storm now is moving a little bit further west than it had been just at least briefly a few hours ago. But I want to stress that we look at the radar picture here and we see these bands come through. And in spite of the fact we've talked about there being tornadoes in these bands, apparently some folks still think it's a cool thing to go out and drive around. But what you do is you not only endanger yourself, you endanger somebody that has to go clean up your mess. if you get blown into somebody else or off the road or something. So, you know, the time has come here for everybody to be at home where they're going to be in place, and that's it. You know, watch the television and let's just see what happens here and see if indeed this storm heads for Key West. And that's the same thing for you folks in the Keys. Even though it looks like we have a little break, let's go ahead and get to the radar. Now, this was at 7:06, and let's just take a look. It looks like we have a band, the band that went through and was so disruptive here in Dade and Broward. There it is, snaking down still through the Middle Keys. The real strong band that perhaps produced, as you guys said, 60-mile-an-hour winds in Key West seems to have moved by, but I can tell you that the official measurement in Key West was not that high. Officially, they had 31 miles per hour.
Brian?
Yeah, Kimber.
Remember when you were talking about a low that was off to the west of Cuba, and you were thinking that maybe that low's movement off and the high pressure, does that have something to do with maybe this eye moving a little bit more to the west?
Well, that's why I brought that up. Let me go through my, do we have the vapor loop, Dave, in that sequence? Let me let Dave Rexroth cue up that loop you were talking about, because that was why when I